On January 14, 2025, the Department of Justice released the final report by Special Counsel Jack Smith, documenting the investigation into former President Donald Trump's attempts to illegally retain power following the 2020 election. This report paints a chilling portrait of deliberate actions to undermine democracy, including pressuring state officials, orchestrating fraudulent electors, manipulating the Justice Department, and inciting the January 6th Capitol insurrection. These actions, detailed by Smith, not only jeopardized American democracy, but also mirrored tactics seen in authoritarian regimes globally, including those led by Vladimir Putin, Viktor Orban, and Xi Jinping. What happens when a leader refuses to accept the will of the people? What happens when democracy itself is put to the test? Trump's behavior after his loss in the 2020 election was not that of a leader accepting defeat, but of one who was determined to hold on to power at any cost. The investigation documents his persistent efforts to undermine legitimate election results, with actions like his phone call to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, on January 2, 2021, where he pressured Raffensperger to find 11,780 votes, the precise margin by which he lost Georgia. Trump's efforts didn't stop there. He pressed other state officials and lawmakers, especially in Arizona and Michigan, urging them to overturn the certified results in his favor. In Michigan, he even invited state legislators to the White House, seeking their help in changing the results, despite knowing these actions had no legal standing. These attempts weren't merely about challenging the outcome. They were part of a systematic effort to forcefully retain power at the expense of democracy itself. One of the most egregious schemes detailed in the report was Trump's effort to orchestrate fraudulent electors in 7 key battleground states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and New Mexico. Trump's team organized individuals who would have been electors if he had won the popular vote to sign and submit false certifications claiming to be the legitimate electors. In a December 6, 2020 call, Trump and his associates pressured the Republican National Committee chairwoman to help organize the fraudulent electors, telling her that the electors' votes would only be used if ongoing litigation proved successful. These fraudulent electors were submitted on December 14, 2020, and sent to Washington, D.C. in an effort to disrupt the January 6th congressional certification process. This was a calculated attempt to manipulate not only state legislatures but also federal law to declare an unlawful victory. The fraud was not just in the votes, it was a disregard for the will of the people and a direct attack on American democracy. Moreover, Trump sought to manipulate the Department of Justice, frustrated with the lack of evidence supporting his fraud claims. Despite the Attorney General's public statement on December 1, 2020, that there was no fraud on a scale that would have affected the election outcome, Trump pressed to appoint a loyalist, co-conspirator 4, as acting Attorney General. Co-conspirator 4 was reportedly willing to use the department to spread Trump's baseless fraud claims and pressure states to reverse the results. Trump explicitly told his acting Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General to just say that the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. This blatant effort to use the Justice Department to serve a personal agenda undermines the integrity of the American legal system, turning it into a tool of political manipulation. The consequences of this manipulation could have been catastrophic, not just for Trump's presidency, but for the entire nation. The January 6th Capitol insurrection was a direct consequence of Trump's rhetoric and actions. During his speech at the Ellipse rally, Trump encouraged the crowd to fight like hell, leading to the violent storming of the Capitol as Congress prepared to certify Biden's victory. The Capitol, the very symbol of American democracy, was overrun as Trump's supporters, fueled by his lies about a stolen election, took action. As rioters breached the Capitol, Trump remained at the White House watching the events unfold on television. Despite his advisors urging him to intervene, he did not issue a statement to stop the violence. Instead, he continued to insist that the rioters were justified because they believed the election had been stolen. In fact, he praised the rioters as very special and expressed admiration for their actions. Trump's failure to act during the Capitol attack and his continued support for the rioters exposed his indifference to the consequences of his actions. He viewed the situation through the lens of electoral fraud, reinforcing the idea that the rioters were justified in their actions. His inflammatory rhetoric and failure to stop the violence suggest that, even in the face of direct threats to the integrity of the democratic process, Trump prioritized his personal political gain over the safety and stability of the country. The Capitol riot wasn't just a random outburst of violence. It was the culmination of Trump's rhetoric and a direct assault on the democratic institutions that define the United States. Trump's actions, marked by coercion, deception, and violence, mirror those seen in authoritarian regimes where leaders manipulate democratic systems to stay in power. His behavior is a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy, not just in the United States, but globally. The international implications are profound. When democratic norms can be so easily manipulated by a leader, the very foundations of the state are at risk. Much like the tactics used by Putin, Orban, and Xi, Trump's actions during the 2020 election and the Capitol attack reflect the broader global challenge of democratic backsliding. When leaders believe they can manipulate the rule of law for their own benefit, democracy itself is endangered. Ultimately, the report highlights the urgent need for accountability. Trump's repeated disregard for the law, his attempt to manipulate both state and federal institutions, and his incitement of violence against the government expose the vulnerabilities in American democracy. The report not only condemns his actions but also serves as a cautionary tale about the dangerous precedent set when leaders undermine the core principles of democratic governance. This investigation underscores that democracy is not something to be taken for granted. It requires constant protection and vigilance from those who would seek to undermine it. As we look to the future, this investigation serves as a reminder that democracy is not a given. It requires constant vigilance, active participation, and protection against those who would seek to weaken it for personal or political gain. The events of January 6, 2021, show the real dangers posed by unchecked political power. If we are to protect the integrity of our democratic system, it is crucial that the actions of those who seek to undermine it are met with accountability and justice. Leaders who attempt to subvert democracy must be held responsible for their actions, or we risk the collapse of our democratic institutions. In conclusion, the investigation by Special Counsel Jack Smith is not only a report on past actions but also a call to action for the future. The United States must ensure that the election process remains uncorrupted and that those who attempt to subvert it face consequences. The future of American democracy depends on the people's commitment to protect its core values and ensure that no one, no matter how powerful, is above the law. The work of preserving democracy is not done. It is a continuing process that requires the active participation of every citizen to ensure the system remains strong and unyielding to the forces that would seek to tear it down. Please subscribe to the Intellectualist's new YouTube channel, where we present insightful videos analyzing the current events shaping the world. Turn on notifications to receive the latest updates from the channel.